Hello, my friends. Today, I want to tell you the incredible story of Cleopatra, the last queen of ancient Egypt. This is not just a history lesson, it's a journey back in time, filled with drama, power, love, and ambition. Cleopatra was one of the most famous women in history, and her life is like an exciting movie. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this amazing story, perfect for your English practice. And I promise, you will love every moment of it. Chapter 1: Cleopatra's Early Life. Over 2,000 years ago, in 69 BCE, a baby girl was born in Alexandria, Egypt. Her name was Cleopatra VII, and she would grow up to become a queen like no other. But before she ruled, she was just a little girl with big dreams. Cleopatra belonged to the Ptolemaic dynasty, a royal family that had ruled Egypt for centuries. However, the Ptolemies were originally Greek, not Egyptian. Cleopatra's ancestor, Ptolemy I, was one of Alexander the Great's trusted generals. After Alexander died, Ptolemy became the ruler of Egypt, and his family continued to reign. Cleopatra's father was Ptolemy XII, and her mother was likely Cleopatra V, though historians aren't certain. She was born into a life of luxury, palaces, servants, fine clothes, and the best education. But royal life wasn't easy. It was full of danger, betrayal, and power struggles. Family members often fought, and even killed one another, for the throne. From a young age, Cleopatra understood that knowledge was power. While most women of her time weren't educated, Cleopatra studied hard. She learned 7 languages, including Greek, Latin, Egyptian, and Hebrew. This made her unique and respected. She was also fascinated by science, math, literature, and politics. She didn't want to be just a ceremonial queen, she wanted to be a real, intelligent, and strong ruler. Cleopatra had another powerful gift, her charm. She was confident, clever, and had a captivating voice that people found hard to resist. But life became difficult. Her father, Ptolemy XII, was seen as weak by many Egyptians. At times, Cleopatra and her family had to flee Egypt for safety. When Cleopatra was just 14 years old, her mother died under mysterious circumstances. Her father grew ill, and Cleopatra knew she'd soon have to fight for the throne. Even though she was of Greek descent, Cleopatra loved Egypt deeply. She learned the Egyptian language, something no other Ptolemaic ruler had done. She even portrayed herself as Isis, the Egyptian goddess of motherhood and magic. By the time she was a young woman, Cleopatra was determined to rule. But Egypt was full of enemies, including her own family. She would have to be smart, brave, and strategic to survive. Chapter 2: Cleopatra becomes queen. When Cleopatra was 18 years old, her father, King Ptolemy XII, died. In his will, he declared that Cleopatra should rule Egypt, but not alone. She had to share the throne with her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII, who was just 10 years old. In ancient Egypt, it was common for siblings to rule together. But Cleopatra didn't want to share power. She had studied politics and leadership, while her brother was still a child, controlled by his advisors. Cleopatra tried to work with him, but the royal advisors didn't trust her. They were afraid of a strong, intelligent woman on the throne. Soon, they turned her brother against her. She was forced to flee the palace and escape into the desert with a few loyal followers. Imagine, the Queen of Egypt, wandering in exile, homeless and powerless. But Cleopatra didn't give up. She began planning her comeback. At the same time, a powerful Roman general, Julius Caesar, arrived in Egypt. He was one of the most famous men in the world. Cleopatra knew that gaining Caesar's support was her best chance. But she couldn't simply walk into the palace. Her enemies would stop her. So, she came up with a brilliant plan. One night, Cleopatra had herself wrapped inside a large carpet, and her servant carried it into Caesar's private quarters. When the carpet was unrolled, Cleopatra emerged, beautiful, bold, and confident. Caesar was amazed. She spoke with charm and intelligence, explaining her situation, her love for Egypt, and her dream to rule wisely. Caesar agreed to support her. Together, they fought Ptolemy XIII and his advisors in a fierce battle. Cleopatra's brother was defeated, and Cleopatra was restored as queen. But she didn't stop there. She worked with Caesar to strengthen Egypt, reform policies, boost trade, and build a stronger relationship with Rome. Chapter 3: Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. Cleopatra was now queen, and Caesar stayed with her in Egypt. Though he was 52 and she was just 21, the two became romantically involved. They spent months together, sailing the Nile, exploring ancient temples, and talking about their future. Cleopatra showed Caesar the beauty of Egypt, its culture, its people, its power. In 47 BCE, Cleopatra gave birth to Caesar's son, Ptolemy Caesar, whom people called Caesarion, meaning Little Caesar. She believed that Caesarion would one day unite Egypt and Rome. Later, Cleopatra traveled to Rome with Caesarion to be with Caesar. She arrived with a grand entourage, gold chariots, exotic animals, and lavish gifts. Rome was amazed and shocked. Cleopatra lived in a luxurious Roman villa, attended banquets, and influenced Roman fashion. But many people disliked her, especially Roman women, because she was powerful, bold, and foreign. In 44 BCE, something tragic happened. Julius Caesar was assassinated by Roman senators who feared he had too much power. Cleopatra was devastated. She fled Rome with her son and returned to Egypt. Back home, she focused on protecting Egypt. She strengthened the economy, improved the military, and raised Caesarion as a future ruler. But she knew that Egypt was still vulnerable, and she would need a new ally. Chapter 4: Cleopatra and Mark Antony. After Caesar's death, Rome was in chaos. A new power struggle began between Octavian, Caesar's adopted son, Mark Antony, and Lepidus. Mark Antony, a brilliant general and powerful man, wanted Cleopatra's support. And Cleopatra wanted Rome's protection. They agreed to meet in Tarsus, a city in modern-day Turkey. But Cleopatra didn't just show up. She made a grand entrance. She arrived on a golden ship with purple sails, dressed as the goddess Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Not just as allies, but as lovers. Cleopatra invited Antony to Egypt, and he stayed. They lived like gods, holding banquets, throwing festivals, and dreaming of a united empire. Together, they had 3 children. Alexander Helios, Cleopatra Selene, Ptolemy Philadelphus. But their relationship caused problems. Antony was already married to Octavia, Octavian's sister. Octavian was furious and saw Cleopatra as a threat to Rome. Soon, Antony and Octavian became enemies. Octavian declared war on Antony and Cleopatra. Chapter 5: The Fall of Cleopatra and Mark Antony. In 31 BCE, their forces met in the Battle of Actium, off the coast of Greece. Cleopatra led the Egyptian fleet, Antony commanded Roman ships. But Octavian's army was too strong. During the battle, Cleopatra's ship suddenly retreated, perhaps to regroup or escape. Antony, thinking she had betrayed him, lost heart, and his fleet collapsed. Later, they reunited in Egypt, and Cleopatra explained she hadn't abandoned him. They still loved each other, but the end was near. Octavian's army invaded Egypt. Antony fought bravely but lost. Thinking Cleopatra was dead, Antony fell on his sword. He didn't die immediately. Servants carried him to Cleopatra, and he died in her arms. Cleopatra was left alone, defeated, surrounded, and trapped. She refused to be paraded through Rome as a trophy. She dressed in her royal robes, sat on her throne, and chose to die with dignity. Legend says she let a poisonous snake, an asp, bite her. She died peacefully, proud and powerful until the end. Cleopatra's legacy. After Cleopatra's death, Egypt became part of the Roman Empire. Her son, Caesarion, was killed by Octavian. Her dream of a united Egypt and Rome was gone. But Cleopatra's legend lived on. People admired her for her intelligence, bravery, leadership, and beauty. She became a symbol of female power and unshakable courage. Her story reminds us that even in dark times, we can face challenges with grace, wisdom, and strength. She proved that women could be leaders, thinkers, and warriors, not just followers. Final thoughts. So, my friends, let Cleopatra's story inspire you. Be bold. Be fearless. Be unforgettable. No matter how hard life gets, you have the power to rise above it, just like Cleopatra did. What did you think of this journey? Isn't Cleopatra's story one of the most inspiring tales in all of history?